I was going to say Luke Robinson joins me, but of course I do. It's also going to be Jimmy Stein joining me, and we're going to talk a few more tidbits about the Nick Saban Jimbo Fisher brouhaha. We're also going to talk about the disappointing ending for the softball team today, and the baseball team maybe catching fire at the right time. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Bama.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. A little bit of a rough day as we record this for Alabama with that softball loss.
Yeah, we'll get to the softball and baseball stuff here in the second and third segments. But right now, first of all, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen when it comes to all things Alabama. But, Jimmy, we said on the last podcast we're going to put a bow on the Bama Jimbo Fisher stuff, but I think it does bear discussing that, first of all, Steve Spurrier came out in sort of defense of Nick Saban, basically said, what did Nick Saban say that was wrong? And I think also the Greg Sankey has come out and said, hey, we're seeing more straight payments to players versus NIL, which is kind of what Nick Saban was saying. Again, I've gotten a lot of pushback from friends who are fans of other teams. Like, oh, so you're saying Nick Saban and Alabama have never done anything under the table? Look, I readily admit on this podcast, I think the underbelly of college football is a real thing. And I think if you are worth your salt and if you're in the Power Five, you've always done something. Now, if you think Alabama's done more, that's on you. I don't necessarily know that. But I do know this, that what's happening right now was not the intent of NIL, and I think that's all Nick Saban was trying to say.
Yeah, I've sort of joked repeatedly. I mean, it's a little bit of a joke, but there's also, as with all jokes, some seriousness in it. That I think some people in college football right now believe that as long as the check you write the player, if it says NIL somewhere on the check, like in the for line, then it's fine. This makes it legal. I wrote NIL on the check, and that was never the intent of this. And look, hey, if we decide that what we're doing is paying the players and we're just paying them, that's fine. But everyone needs to know this. And I think that's what Coach Saban is saying. He's not saying A&M is cheating, though they might be, or he's not saying that what they did is illegal, though it might be. There needs to be some level of scrutiny as to what's going on with the teams that are apparently going further with NIL than others. But regardless of all that, even Jimbo Fisher himself in the famous press conference where he called Nick Saban names, he said there needs to be a uniformity of rules in what everyone's doing with NIL. Everybody needs to be doing the same thing. And that's what needs to be done. I'm not saying let's quit paying the players or NIL hasn't worked. I'm just saying let's make one set of rules that applies to everyone that are very clear. And we don't have that right now. That's the problem.
Yeah, and again, if you don't dive very deep into Saban's comments, I mean, I get where people are getting on to him because just like I said, Steve Spurrier backed him up. Just like I said, seemingly Lane Kiffin has kind of backed him up. And also it seems like Greg Sankey was echoing to a degree what Saban was saying. There have been some other people that have said, hey, what a hypocrite to say this and that and the other. And I honestly just think they don't like Nick Saban to begin with. Although, again, you and I both agreed his presentation could have been a little better.
I would have loved it. I would have loved to do that all over again and leave out Jackson State. And I'm not saying that they did that what happened with Travis Hunter was the intent of NIL either. I don't know what those facts are. I don't know. I just sort of wish he'd left that out. And I also wish that instead of saying Texas A&M bought the players, I wish he'd have just said Texas A&M's collective bought every player. And I wonder how just using that one word, which would have made what happened even more accurate. I wonder if there even would have been a press conference called by Jimbo Fisher if he'd have just said that. And and it still would have advanced the national discussion, which is, I'm sure, is what Coach Saban would have liked to have seen.
We're going to talk about the disappointing ending for the softball team. We don't talk a lot of softball, but I mean, wow, that was not so good today. We'll talk about that when we come back after I tell you about Built Bar. I love brownies. You love brownies. We all love brownies. I scream, you scream, we all scream for brownies. But you know what I love more than brownies? Brownie batter. Sometimes I eat half the batter just while I'm making the brownies. I don't make a lot of brownies, but if somebody is, I'm going to eat the batter. Imagine if you could lick that brownie spatula clean and have some protein in it and it not be that bad for you and not cause you that to chunk up immediately. Well, you're in luck because Built has a new creation, and this one is better than ever. The brownie batter puff. You heard me right. This puff.
I'm in.
We're all in. This puff takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they're available right now on Built.com. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off that order at Built.com. The brownie butter puffs will have you completely forgetting that you're eating a protein bar. No need to pinch yourself. This is real life, baby. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off that order. All right, Jimmy, the softball team, as we're recording this Sunday afternoon, they had a nice win in the first game against Stanford. They shut Stanford out. And you think, okay, maybe the bats woke up. Well, they had their second shutout loss to Stanford in 3 days after that game. And, this team, again, I'm not going to pretend like we follow softball all year round. I mean, we enjoy softball. I enjoy softball more than baseball. But I'm much rather keep up with what's going on with Arch Manning and Eli Holstein and the crew than I would a softball match, softball game, softball match with cricket. But boy, you can't help but be a little disappointed. This is the first time ever Alabama's not gotten out of the regional. So yeah, this one kind of stings a little bit, right?
Yeah, big time. And I tweeted this right after because there was such an obvious arc to me of this softball season was so much like the men's basketball season. It's just like it started out with really high expectations, literal talk, and it wasn't even crazy talk of, could this be one of our best teams? Could this be a team that goes further and win the national championship for the first time since 2012? There was legitimate talk of that. And then the team starts out playing great. I think they were 20-0 at one point. I mean, they started out just great, and they could pitch and they could hit and play defense, and the lineup looks loaded and the pitching staff was deep. There was one injury, and it really hurt. Lexi Kilfoyle, the number 2 pitcher, she was hurt, unable to play down the stretch, made Montana throw an ungodly amount of innings. None of this is Montana's fault. She's a total warrior. She's legendary for what she did today. I mean, she pitched, I believe, off the top of my head, she pitched 12 innings, over 12 innings against Stanford without giving up a single run today before she just ran out of gas like anybody that's remotely human would have done. But ultimately what happened is this team went on a road trip to Texas A&M early in April or mid-April and couldn't hit the ball and haven't been able to hit the ball since. It's been a team-wide offensive slump that's lasted over a month. And it's crazy because the team hit the ball pretty well before then. It wasn't like they were exposed because they played a lot of good teams and a lot of good pitchers before then. It is a team-wide offensive slump that's lasted a month. So it ends up very similar to the basketball. High expectations, a great start that fueled the expectations, and then overnight turns into this team that down the stretch frankly just wasn't elite. It just was. I mean, was it a shock when Alabama basketball lost in the SEC tournament to Vanderbilt and then lost quickly in the NCAA tournament? No. And now this softball team loses to Missouri in its first game in the SEC tournament and then fails to get out of a regional. It wasn't a surprise based on how they had played down the stretch offensively. So, boy, it just followed the arc of that men's basketball season, just like it has the same sort of feel to it. No one should be like, oh, we need to make it change. No, there needs to be some tweaks. There has to be some tweaks and maybe a batter or two out of the portal. And I've read a lot of smarter softball fans myself saying we might need a different approach at the plate, kind of more of a team-wide philosophy change. Hey, Nick Saban did it. We win in football much differently in 2022 than we did in 2009. There is nothing wrong with doing it differently. But gosh, little disappointing, but also very proud of Montana Fouts, one of the great athletes in the history of Alabama sports.
Yeah, agreed. Montana should never have to buy a beer in Tuscaloosa, period. And so kudos to her and her career. But, again, it just, boy, I think the comparison between the softball season and the basketball season is spot on. That's tough. It should be noted, one of our listeners, I'm going to pull it up. I got a weird thing with my email that every time I pull it up, it makes a funky noise like consistently. So I'm not going to do that on my computer. But Cameron Bishop, one of our loyal listeners, says, "Afternoon, Luke and Jimmy. One topic I'd like for y'all to dive into: what new assistant do you believe will have the biggest on the field contribution? What new assistant will have the biggest recruiting contribution?" Well, hang on, Jimmy, because we're not going to talk about that today. I just want to. That's what we call in the business a teaser. So
I love the question.
We will bring it up, Cameron Bishop. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate you kindly. But right now, I need to tell everybody about Rock Auto. All the parts your car will ever need, Rock Auto. That's a new twist on an old song. This episode is actually brought to you by Rock Auto. With ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure the often pointless and seemingly intimidating questions like, is your Honda Odyssey an LX or an EX or a DMX or whatever? You don't know. And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home, so why don't you just or pull it up on your phone? Go to Rock Auto, save a ton of money. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every single customer. It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us box so they know Locked On Bama sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Rock Auto. All right, Jimmy, one final segment here, and this will be a quick one. I know you're trying to get back. Justin Thomas is now one stroke out of the lead. I know I made you miss it so you could cut this podcast, so I'll cut it short. But the baseball team takes 2 of 3 from the number 5 team in the country. They make it to the SEC tournament. They will play Tuesday against Georgia. God, can we get rid of Georgia? We can't get away from them. But anyway. What do you think this means for the baseball team? Do you think they make the NCAA tournament at this point?
No, I think they got to win. They have to win the SEC tournament at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they would have to win the SEC tournament to make the NCAAs, which is a hill too steep to climb for anyone that's not in the American League East. Winning the SEC tournament is a total bear. But what I would like to see, regardless of how far they can make, is a win. Beat Georgia. Do something to give everyone hope that we're still headed in the right direction, because unlike softball, baseball's been fairly disappointing from beginning to end. There were stretches where they looked good, and the sweep over Ole Miss, and there was a while where like, hey, now we got it. We got this thing turned around. But no, they can't hit the ball either. They do a fantastic job hitting the ball in the last series against an outstanding Arkansas team. I would just like to see a run in Hoover. Don't just lose the first game and go home or whatever the format is. But Georgia's a difficult draw. There's no such thing as not a difficult draw in the SEC tournament. You're going to play somebody really freaking good every time you get out there. It would be great to see some life in the baseball program. Make it fun. Let's make somebody really sweat to knock Alabama out of the tournament. That'd be great.
I think it's ironic you say, hey, I want to see a run in the tournament. I want to see a run, literally, just a run. I don't want to be shut out. That's all I want. That's all I'm asking for. I wouldn't mind, stringing a few wins together, but I'm not super optimistic. I don't know. I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility for this team to make the NCAAs if they do win a couple of games. But again, I'm not optimistic. You think they got to win it all?
I think they win it all, but I also admit, I once we hit the wall and that long losing streak, I sort of stopped asking my buddies and sort of stopped following guys like the Rogers guy, the D1 guy that projects the field. I sort of stopped following it, to be honest, because I thought there's just no way. Maybe the wins over Arkansas have helped. But hey, regardless, I know this. They can't show up in Hoover and just lose and go home and get in. They're going to have to make a run to win. So whether it's a run that gets them in the regional or just a run that makes the tournament in Hoover more exciting, because this is the way I am. I hate to be this way. I like Major League Baseball more than college baseball, but I do, of course, pull hard for Alabama, and to some extent, the South Alabama Jaguars, I like them too. But this is the truth for me. I'm just being honest. I'm going to really enjoy the SEC tournament in Hoover right up until Alabama loses. When Alabama's out, I lose interest. That's just me. I shouldn't be that way, but I am. So I hope Alabama does well so I can enjoy the tournament. But if Alabama loses Tuesday morning and they're out, then I'm going to be watching the Atlanta Braves. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, there is the silver lining in a sense. If Alabama goes out, we're out of softball, we're out of baseball. The Braves are falling back further and further. So I think we're going to have everybody's full attention on football, which I kind of dig. But Jimmy, I know you got to go, so we'll let you run. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate y'all so much. Our listenerships, subscribers over 1,150 now. Y'all keep that going. Keep that shit up, y'all. Appreciate you. Anyway, that's going to do it. Until next time, roll tide, Jimmy.
Roll tide.